All right, good morning, everybody. Uh,
Morning.
it's good to be here. I'm Chris Gallion. I'm a traffic operations and ITS project manager with HNTB, and we are here with ACEC Georgia. They let us take over the podcast today, so we'll see how this goes. But this is what we call YPN in the know, and so we dive into the journeys, challenges, and successes of young professionals and young at heart professionals in the industry. And we really just want to facilitate a genuine conversation about a myriad of different topics. And I'm happy to be joined by this esteemed panelist of professionals at various career ranges and different components of the AC industry. So we're really excited. I'd like to introduce myself a little bit, and then I'll let these fine individuals introduce themselves. I'm Chris Gallion again. I'm a Louisiana native. That might impact things with the podcast, but we'll see how that goes. Moved to Atlanta after graduating from LSU with a civil engineering degree. I was chasing a girl, and she married me, and it's been going well ever since. Also got my master's degree from Kennesaw State back in 2024, and I got my engineering license shortly thereafter. My background is in aviation site development, water resources, and over the last few years, really honing in on traffic engineering, ITS, and operations. And I've been fortunate to be on the junior board for the last 2 years, where I've been having a blast with one of my dear friends, Abby, who's also on the junior board as well. So this podcast is really one that I'm excited about because it's all about how to build a career in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. A lot of words, so we're going to just say AEC going forward, especially during that pivotal transition point from campus to career. School, they teach you a lot of technical knowledge, and then you get to these actual jobs that you're getting paid to do this work. So we really want to spend a lot of time today talking about those transition points. So this podcast is for if you in college, it's for if you early in your career, or if you're a seasoned vet that may be interacting with these people at these different career points. So I'd like to let Abby introduce herself. I want to start with her because she's my favorite. No, I'm just joking. And then we'll kind of go around the horn, and then we'll get started with some questions. So,
Yeah.
Abby?
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name's Abby Burks. I am originally from Auburn, Alabama, and that's where I graduated university from with a civil engineering degree back in 2019. And being from Alabama, there's not a huge market for transportation, which was what I wanted to specialize in, but still wanted to stay relatively close to home. So Atlanta made the most sense. So that's how I ended up in this area. And my background technically is in roadway design, 3D modeling, plan production, mostly for GDOT projects. And as of a year and 3 weeks, I've been with Athena Engineering, which is a woman-owned business. We're based in Peachtree Corners, which is also where I live with my husband. And now I serve in more of a project management role, but working for a small business, I kind of do whatever's needed, jump in wherever we need, business development, marketing, invoicing, doing the design, managing the projects, you name it. I enjoy it. So
Absolutely.
That's me.
Awesome. Mr. Broughton?
Yeah, so my name is Darius Broughton. I am a Georgia boy. I grew up in Conyers, Georgia. I went through the dual degree program between Morehouse College and North Carolina A&T University. So applied physics at Morehouse and bioenvironmental engineering at North Carolina A&T, and then came back home to Georgia and started working in the environmental space first, but quickly transitioned over to construction engineering and inspection for a consulting company here, but servicing the city of Atlanta, their water program, right, the consent decree program. So did that for a lot of years. Eventually switched over from consultancy to an actual city employee in Watershed. Was one of the ones who helped start Watershed's inaugural PMO. And switched from there to go back to consultancy. I was then married and had 2 kids and needed more money. And, so went back into consultancy, helped out with the streetcar project for a very short moment, and then went down to the airport for almost a decade, helping to run the program down there. Eventually switched from more construction engineering and inspection and project management to project controls by accident, really by accident, but made a career out of it.
Yeah.
So ran cost, schedule, and risk at the airport for many years, and then switched over when MARTA was starting their PMO to kind of help them get things stood up for a couple of years. Then 4 years ago, this past January, I moved over to H&TB. I am now Vice President and Group Director, and I have our aviation and municipal verticals for Georgia and Alabama. So it's been an interesting journey, lots of different twists and turns. I've had a chance to touch utilities, public works, transportation, transit, and aviation. So a nice cross section in there, and just happy to be a part of this panel.
Absolutely. Charlene?
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Charlene Smart. I am not an engineer, but I am a Georgia native. I thought I was going to be the only one in the bunch.
Oh, no.
But it's always good to meet some homegrown people. So my career started back when I graduated from Georgia State University here in Atlanta. I started with a business management degree, but always knew I wanted to work with people. So I morphed into the personnel side of business management. I started my career with Enterprise Rent-A-Car as a management trainee and grew up within the organization. Found myself in human resources doing what I love, working with people. And from there, I worked in multiple industries, facilities, maintenance, hospitality, in human resources. And in about 2012, I found myself in the AEC industry as a consultant, working with multiple companies, and happened across corporate environmental risk management. And in 2019, I joined their team as their first human resources manager, and have found myself now being the director of human resources for the organization. So working with all things people, working alongside engineers, understanding the nature of the work that you all do, how it's done, the challenges that are faced, how we support our engineers from a human resources perspective. So really exciting being in the industry. One thing I do love is no day is the same. Civil engineering is different from geotechnical, which is different from design. So it's ever evolving, and it's really, really interesting to see and to drive by a building or a part of the airport and know that your company played a part in making that come to life is really, really exciting. So happy to be here today. Love the topic that we're talking about and the interaction with people.
Yeah.
So right down my alley and in my wheelhouse. So really, really excited to get started.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Charlene, Darius, and Abby. Few housekeeping items. So you just heard from this illustrious panel of people with various perspectives. So we want to hear questions from y'all. So if you're listening on LinkedIn Live, we really would like to entertain some questions from y'all. So interact with us. Let the conversation not just be in this room, but be online as well. And we're gonna have some fun. I like to joke a little bit. So we're gonna see if my dad jokes stick or not. We'll see how it goes.
All right.
So let's get into one of our first questions, and I'll just kind of put this out there for the group, see who wants to react to it first, and then make sure you guys can jump in as the conversation develops. But can y'all walk us through what a typical day in your current role looks like? I put emphasis on typical on purpose because I think no day is typical. But if you had to kind of normalize it to some degree, what would that typical day look like in each of your roles? And then a follow-on is, what part of the day do you find the most fulfilling?
Well, I'll start here.
Yeah,
Look my
go
way,
for
so I
it.
guess
Yeah, you got it.
Well, my typical day typically starts very early. And the reason being is because we work with a workforce such that their days start early.
Sure.
So trying to make sure that we have a presence for those individuals that start at 7 a.m. So my day typically starts between 7 and 7:30 a.m. where I am at the office or online, taking calls, a lot of reporting and analytics on the front part of the day because it typically tends to be a little bit quieter.
Mm-hmm.
But as the day goes on, it evolves into calls, emails with employee inquiries about various things from health benefits or something's going on with my HRIS system. I can't get logged in. So it's multifaceted. It's never the same.
Sure.
It's never the same, to your point. But it's always, you look up and before you know it, you start at 7 and it's, oh my gosh, it's 1 o'clock. It's because you're being able to interact with so many different people on various levels. Meetings, there are meetings because you're working with individuals in teams, collaborating. So you have to talk with and engage with the people that you're working with throughout the day. So it's really, really interesting. But I do have to say my favorite part of the day is when I am in the office and I do get to see the people in the workforce, especially when you work in our industry. Sometimes a large portion of your workforce is what we call seconded, right? They're out on project sites and you don't get to see them every day. So it's really, really fun when the guys have to come by the office, pick up equipment, print maps, and you get to check in with them, learn how things are going on the project, ask about life because they do have lives, their families, their children. So I think that is really the best and most favorite part of the day for me because that's the people part. It's that part where we get to interact, we get to talk to the people we serve. So I really love that part.
I love it. Who's next?
I'm happy to go next, sure.
Yeah.
And I think, Charlene, a lot of what you said resonates with me. I think a big part of why I love going to the office every day, being in person, is getting to interact with my colleagues, my teammates, my friends. Being an engineer on these larger projects, it's not, I don't work in the site development side. I'm exclusively transportation and heavy civil. So bigger projects means bigger teams, and getting to collaborate and learn different perspectives and learn from people who have more experience from me, people who have less experience than me, is really enjoyable and probably my favorite part of the day. But like I mentioned earlier, working for sort of a newer small business, every day is very different, and I love that.
Yeah.
I'm the type of person who'd probably lose my mind if I was staring at cross sections for 20 hours of the week. So I like coming in, and I have my meetings scheduled. We have our monthly project meetings. We have our firm does a lot of quality control work as well, so we have our reconciliation meetings after reviews and things like that, field plan reviews. We have our scheduled meetings, but every day is different depending on project need and project schedule, and things change, and I enjoy that.
Well, I resonate a lot with what you just said. I feel like I wear 4 different hats. So, of course, I'm a project executive on a lot of what we do. And that ranges from everything from communications to aviation architecture to roadway design to, just urban planning, right? There's a lot of things in there, lots of different kinds of work. But I also help out with operations in the office. So then there's the actual crunching of the numbers and the business side, the aspect of it that I have to pay attention to every day. Right. I guess the third thing would be business development, right, which is a very large hat that I wear. And lastly is the people part, which is the part that I enjoy the most. Chris can probably tell you that my office is a revolving door.
Oh, definitely.
And
which would include me.
That's the part that is most enjoyable to me. I mean, honestly, there are lots of firms out here who can do really good work in engineering, architecture, and construction management. But I think a differentiating thing for these firms is how they treat people, right? And that's from the client all the way down to the employee. So I take pride in pouring out as much as I can. Right, I think that is super important. It's an emphasis and a passion of mine. So I don't know how well I do it, but I spend a lot of time trying. And so every day is a mixture of that. I'm like you. I get started early. I have about an hour and 15 to an hour and a half commute every morning. So it usually starts on the phone on the way in, followed by meetings pretty much all day. But I like the fact that there are no idle hands, right? Everybody's moving and getting things done and working together, and that part of it's a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, I think just what you mentioned about being sort of the upper management, the executive level, and recognizing and having the desire to pour into the juniors and the up and coming members of the firm, that is really special. And especially at where I work, Athena Engineering, our leadership, Emily Woods and Ahmet Ergen, that's their whole shtick, is pour back into the ones creating the success. I think if you can find, as someone, maybe entering the industry or navigating early career, finding a place where you feel that and recognize that, and the upper management really, you feel that from them, that's huge.
I think it's actually a charge that upper management should carry. If you're not identifying talent and helping to grow them in areas where they can really be powerful, then you're really doing yourself a disservice and doing the company a disservice. So you have to put emphasis on being self-aware first and foremost, making sure that you actually see what's going on with you and how you interact with people. But then also, being open enough to allow people to come into your space, ask questions, and really, try to help them be as successful as they want to be in where they want to be successful too, right?
That's good.
So it's fun. It's interesting at times, but definitely fun. I know you see a ton of it in
yes.
HR. So.
Yes.
So I think this thread that's why I wanted this conversation to be really organic. So I appreciate everybody jumping in. But our industry is people focused.
Yes.
We're not building widgets. We interact with people. 99.999% of what we do is people.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we could talk a little bit about a transitional kind of question. So this first question was intentional to kind of break the ice, set the stage about what your day-to-day looks like. But let's go back in time a little bit. Now, what I want to also highlight is whenever we ask about your day-to-days, nobody said cross-sections, nobody said CAD technician, nobody said redlining, plan sets, which we do those things. But that's a small snippet in the grand scheme of what we do. Everything we really do is communication, collaboration, learning how to manage our schedule. So I want to throw this question out there. I think it's a perfect segue. Is when you think back on your journey into your current role, what skills did you realize you had to intentionally develop, either technical or professional, that school didn't fully prepare you for? When I left school, I left with a lot of theories and concepts, which is important. Like, you need to know those things. But I learned communication, collaboration, teamwork, mainly on the job. So I want to put that question out for the panel. What skills do you feel like you had to intentionally develop that school maybe kind of scratched the surface or didn't fully prepare you for?
I would say communication.
Yeah.
Communication, I think it was the art of communication early on in my career. Knowing that and understanding that in communication, in effective communication, you have two parties. There's a sender of a message and a receiver of a message, and both have a responsibility within that communication stream. First, the sender is to give the information in such a way that the receiver can utilize it. However, on the receiver's end, if you don't have everything you need, then you have to be willing to communicate back to garner that information so that you can effectively execute what it is that you're doing. So I thought that was really one of the most important things coming out of college, that I wish there were a course that was just centered on communication. And you touched on something about knowing yourself. Know, and I'd love to say, to thine own self be true. Yeah. So once you know who you are and what your tendencies are and how your utopia looks, it allows you to become more flexible in your interactions with others. So I think that is really, really important. So to your point, when you know your tendencies, what gets you up, what gets you going, your expertise, how you communicate best, then it allows you to be available to other people. Yeah. So I loved it when you said knowing myself. And I think that's another thing that coming out of school, I wish I had known. I didn't learn it until I was a little further into my career and took my first assessment through Myers-Briggs Type Indicator.
Yeah.
And then when looking at it and thinking, oh my gosh, that is so right. But then also learning the people that were around me, that were on my team, that I was working alongside. And then how could I make my preferred way of being more collaborative? How could I be more of a partner to them and interact with them better? And it really is, if you've never done it, you get the opportunity. DISC, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, do it for yourself just to understand what your utopia is. And I call it your utopia because if everything were built around you, this is how it would always be. But once you learn that, then be open to understanding the different types of people that will work around you, and then how you can adjust and make sure that you get the most out of every interaction and relationship is really key and pivotal.
I love that. I know we do the bird test sometimes at HNTV.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a peacock. That was a bird. That was- so, but yeah, keep this question out there for the rest of the folks.
So, when I came out of school, I was thrust into the field. Field engineer. You're out there huffing it in the beginning, and then once I started to get into big construction, I was quickly given, sort of my first crew of inspectors to kind of oversee. So I'm 25 years old, with not a really strong background in the thing that I am now managing. And these inspectors are hard men, right? That's the reality of it. I'm still young. They're old enough to be my father. How do I communicate what I think I know in a way that they will receive it and activate those things? What I figured out very quickly is that communication was really, really, really important. But for me in that time, the largest part of communication was listening. And once they realized that even though I was in a position where I'm supposed to be managing them, that I was open to hearing what they had to say and, quite frankly, learning from them, the dynamic changed quickly. I became trusted, right? So they would talk to me about things that I did not see as a young engineer that they saw and were correcting as things went along that made me a better engineer, right? Like the reality of it is that starting for me in the field with those guys gave me an eye on things in design that I would not have had I just been in the office drawing.
Sure.
Right. So listening and being open again, and I'll kind of keep hitting that, was super important for me.
That's good.
In terms of transitioning from college to the workforce. It helped me identify individuals who I could trust. I feel like there are folks who are around me that didn't realize that they were mentors. Because they may not have been speaking to me directly, but I listened and gleaned a lot from what they were doing.
Yeah.
And, good and bad. Sometimes I found out what things not to do.
Yeah.
Right? But
Also valuable.
but it was because I was zoomed in on that part of it. So, communicating isn't always just me talking, right? The majority of the time, if you're doing it well, it's you in a receiver's position.
That's good.
Right?
That's good.
So that would be the biggest thing. I think school teaches you a ton of theory without teaching you a ton of application. So I feel like things are segmented into 3 different boxes. You have information, right? You have this understanding, right? And then you have application. Wisdom and application to me are the same.
Yeah.
We get a lot of information in school. We get a little bit of understanding in school. We don't get a lot of application in school. So the key for a young engineer, a young architect, a young LA, a young HR person, is to figure out how to convert that information and this little bit of understanding you may have into some actual application and wisdom.
Yeah. I've heard the saying, knowledge is power, and then somebody say, really, applied knowledge
Applied
is
knowledge is
power.
power.
So, Abby,
Absolutely.
you want to take a stab at this question?
Sure. I have, I guess, 3 main points, and mostly it'll be repeating or re-emphasizing what Charlene and have said.
Yeah.
The first is sort of knowing yourself in 2 ways, building your confidence through repetition. And I'm sort of speaking as someone who came and started in a technical position, behind the screen, doing design every day, building your confidence through repetition. Maybe that seems boring, but it's invaluable to build your confidence. Like you said, you come in not knowing a ton for a long time, for several years, you don't know a lot. And that can only come through repetition. And then on the other side of that, humility, knowing that you don't know a lot and being open to listening to not just your direct manager, not just the person giving you the assignments, but keeping your ears open all the time, gleaning bits of knowledge and information from every conversation that goes on to make you well-rounded and, have a general understanding of what's going on, not just your specific task, but the big picture. And then second would be time management and task management.
Oh man, yes.
I was a student athlete in college, so I feel like I kind of got like an early glimpse into how difficult that can be when you have 20 things to do and 2 hours to do them in.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a hard realization for a lot of early career professionals is you start off, okay, finish this task. And then once you start learning things and once you start getting good at things,
Yeah.
dump a whole bucket of tasks on your desk. How are you going to manage that?
Yeah.
That's a skill that takes time to learn and takes a little bit of pain,
Yes.
a little bit of late
Yeah.
nights,
Yeah.
early mornings.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I'll say is exactly what you were saying, practical application. You don't learn that in school. Maybe some classes, some professors give you a little bit of taste of that, different projects, and oh, this is what designing a detention pond would be like, or designing a roadway, an intersection.
Mhm.
It's nothing like the real world. And so really understanding and being open to how can I apply these principles practically and not just read the manual and exactly do what the manual says, but how can I interpret the manual to make the best design decision and use my engineering judgment to make the right solution
Mhm.
for the specific project, the specific site. That takes, again, time and wisdom that you garner over that time.
And I was going to add to that because I love what the both of you said. It all touched on relationship, right? And so it comes back to taking those opportunities and interactions to build those relationships. And then those relationships begin to undergird what it is that you're doing day over day, building that confidence, showing up as a 25-year-old lead of construction inspectors that, to your point, could be your father.
Right.
So it's important because in each instance, you're learning from someone else, and then you're having relationships that have become mutually beneficial, is what I heard, and that is really important.
Yeah, that's so good. I was writing down a lot of aha moments, and you can hear me saying and right in the background because I'm garnering a lot of what you all are saying. Darius, you mentioned listening and learning. And then Abby, you mentioned something I thought was really key, is building your confidence through repetition, though, not just blindly having confidence.
Yeah, doing
Because-
something one time.
Yeah.
Oh, I did it.
Yeah, I'm an expert now. No, you're not. Like
That's exactly right.
So this other question kind of is probably a good next one is when you start your career, I'm a segment in this question. You really focus on the what, right, and a little bit of the how, right? Do this task, use AutoCAD, use Civil 3D, use OpenRoads, use this modeling software. But sometimes you don't always understand the why. And as I'm learning, as I'm starting to manage younger staff, no matter what I give them, even if it's a minor task, I try my best to help them understand why. Because I know when I was early in my career, I just focused on the what and the how. Like, I didn't know what oh yeah, we're doing a sewer replacement. Yeah, this is going to help this community not have to have dated septic systems, and they're going to have city ran sewer. I was just focusing on pipes and Civil 3D, right? And so I want to kind of pose this question to the panel. How did you learn to understand the why as you were developing your career, not just the what or the how?
I'll start, if you don't mind.
Sure.
First off, I will say that I had to learn this through managing people. First off, but then it took a turn. I remember vividly working for Watershed and having a day where I'm wondering why I wasn't as successful as I wanted to be in managing a larger team. It was one of the largest teams I had ever had, and there were portions of it that were going really well and other ones that weren't. And I had a conversation with an individual, and they started talking to me about, generations and what drove generations. And he went through boomers and Gen X and all that. And he said, well, as you get to this new generation, they aren't necessarily chasing the white picket fence, Gen X sort of deal. They typically will have more safety nets than the generations before them. they need purpose
Yeah.
attached to whatever it is they do
Yeah.
to be successful,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, you know, they will never have any loyalty to you or your roles that you have out here.
Right.
They will just go to the next thing where they can find more purpose.
Mm-hmm.
The longer I work in this industry, the more I see the truth in that. And you can tell the difference between going to an office that is what I will call task driven and going to an office that is purpose driven.
Mm.
The culture is different. The task driven office will typically have a lot more turnover. You know, and people seem to be just not as happy. They may be content because that's where they go to get their check, and it's very predictable from day to day. But quite frankly, because they are not plugged into the purpose, they have no joy in what they're doing. So, with that being said, I think it's very important for managers to absolutely show the macro before getting into the micro.
100%.
Here's this client. Here's what they're trying to accomplish. Here's the series of jobs in this program that you are responsible for. Right. Here's what they'll do. Not only how will this affect the constituents that you're designing for, but how will this affect the agency that you're working for, right? Like, how does this affect your business? If we do well at this and we deliver quality here, will they help us recruit more business because they trust what we do, right? They understand that we bought into their vision as clients, right? When you start attaching all that purpose and then you show your individuals that work for you a pipeline about how they can grow within that purpose, oh man, what you've done is you've unlocked a cheat code.
Yeah.
And eventually these people not only get their own, I call it getting their own no,
Sure.
right? But even if they leave you, you've built this team of advocates all over that will go to bat for you and eventually may end up being your partners in other things. So you really have to, as a manager, attach purpose because quite frankly, the younger generation is flat out built different.
Yeah.
Their priorities are different. Their allegiances are different. And I think if you don't lead with that, you really, as a business, set yourself up to fail.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Charlene, you want to jump on that? And I know you have the HR perspective too, working with people a lot. So
when I heard you say purpose, I instantaneously equated that to goal. Where are we going, and what are we trying to accomplish?
yeah.
And while there may be multiple ways to get there, the destination is always the same. I like to say that, if we're going to somewhere, coming to a restaurant in downtown Atlanta, if you live in Ellenwood and you live in Marietta and you live in Douglasville, multiple ways to get there from any of those locations to the destination. However, the goal is to get to the destination.
Right.
And when you are working towards that same goal, that same purpose, I think it is so critical and so important. But then leaving that room for how we get there, how you get to the purpose, how do you get to the goal, leaving enough bandwidth to be able to get there is so critical and so important. So I loved when you said making sure that we set that purpose and that we can get to that purpose, and the why behind you're doing it. Goal, purpose. Why am I on 285 instead of on I-20? Because I'm trying to get to downtown Atlanta, right? But it all comes back to that's what's driving you to keep moving forward. So I think it creates the momentum you need. It drives the excellence you desire, and it opens so many doors. So it's really, really important to establish that why, and again, to help communicate that why. And if you have questions, because sometimes you can set the purpose, you can set the goal, and it may not resonate. So helping along the way, if you see someone they're not capturing the why of what it is that you're doing, not being afraid to just reach back and help them. And have a conversation, and that, I just love the fact that your office is a revolving door, because that's how you help people get to the why, because they're not afraid to come to you and ask questions, because sometimes it's just just the fear of do I say I don't know, do I say I don't understand the why? But when you're open to receiving that, you can help people understand the why and what they're doing. And it's critically important, because then it unifies you towards a common goal. And you can all go further, quicker together than you would if you were disjointed.
Absolutely. So like attaching a goal and a purpose to the task, right? Because you still have to do the task, but the task gets amplified and the force gets multiplied when you understand the purpose of that task, not just the task.
And to her point, when you go that direction, you also open the door for more creativity and problem solving.
That's good.
So when people understand the overall purpose and they understand their importance in the execution
Yeah,
of it,
they're a piece of it.
they are much more open to sharing their ideas.
Absolutely.
Right. And you also have to cultivate that part, right? You said it, there's more than one way to skin a cat. You've got to be open as a manager to bring innovation.
Yeah.
And innovation comes through, diversity in thought.
Absolutely.
So all of those are things you have to cultivate through
Absolutely.
that process.
Yeah.
Abby, you want to jump on that?
Sure. I recently had my performance evaluation at work, and Chris may be in the same general phase of life where it's kind of early in our career in terms of guiding younger staff,
Right.
managing younger staff, and managing projects that require younger staff to complete. And some of the feedback I got was be more product driven rather than procedure driven. I don't need to micromanage every step of the way as long as the product, the outcome, is what we want.
Yeah, that's good.
So kind of exactly what you were saying, Darius, giving the younger generation, the younger staff or the less experienced staff, some kind of autonomy, some kind of confidence and line of creativity, where they can get to the finish line whatever way they need to, whatever way they want to, whatever way they find.
Yeah.
If there's a more efficient way, we can show them, but letting them take the path they want to take, as long as the product is what the client wants, then giving them that confidence in themselves is really important. And I think, this is all great advice for the manager side, but from a entry level, someone coming into the industry, advice I would give maybe is be just as hungry as the manager. As we're saying, we want to help them, be just as hungry to get the help.
Yeah.
Ask the questions. Don't be shy.
Yeah.
It's only going to hurt you to be shy and not ask the questions.
Yeah.
Keep your ears open around the office.
I love
Don't
that.
silo yourself. It comes just as much from an effort on their side as it does from the manager's side. If it's not symbiotic, it's not going to work. Someone's going to get lost along the way.
I love that.
I love that. I rarely use the word learn in the past tense because I'm always learning. As soon as I say I learned, you find something new. Like, oh, I didn't know that, right? It's like a constant learning. And I love what you said about having that hunger. And not hunger just to be, I want to be a manager or a director. Like, yeah, that's going to come. But a hunger for knowledge and skills.
Exactly.
You get the skills and the knowledge, all the rest of the stuff will come. So
Yes.
I love that point that you made there. We got a question.
All
A
right.
live
Right.
question.
Awesome.
And this person, they tapped in for real because this question ties right in with what we're talking about. So the question is from Kay Saunders. She said, I'm loving the honest conversation points, which is key. I wanted this to be an honest, candid conversation. What makes AEC a career path that offers more opportunity than students might initially realize? What does growing in your career look like? And I'll add a little bit to this. I know, you come out of school with an engineering degree, you might be enticed to work at, in the tech industry, which love the tech industry. It's booming. It's always evolving. But I know in my experience, I've experienced stability and growth at the same time in the transportation space because you're always going to be moving people. You're always going to be moving goods. And so there's a stability there and there's a growth as well. So just to add to that question, again, it says, what makes AEC a career path that offers more opportunity than students might initially realize? And what does growing in your career look like? So I'll put that out.
Well, what I've seen in human resources is while you may come out of school or graduate with a certain degree, especially in engineering, you oftentimes are working alongside so many different aspects of engineering within one project.
Right.
It can be from the materials testing and impaction, or the construction aspect where you're looking at the specs and make sure it's done right, or you're actually doing the design work, or you're physically doing the work, but you're exposed to so many different aspects of the work that's being performed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not siloed. I mean, within the industry, you have construction inspection, you have engineering, you have survey, you have environmental. There's so much. And at any given moment, you can gravitate towards any of those areas, upskill,
Yeah.
right? Learn something new. And you might find, wait a minute, I'm passionate about this. And then you can go on to pursue it and learn it from a roots grass level, and then pursue additional educational opportunities in it. So I do believe it's a learning opportunity when you first come into it. You know what you graduated with, right? You know your degree. But then being open to working alongside a geotechnical engineer or working alongside a registered or professional land surveyor, working alongside a senior construction inspector, construction manager, seeing what it is they do, knowing how you fit into that puzzle, and then it allows you to now start to begin to expand your base, your horizon. And again, the more skills you have, the more confident you are in doing those skills, it will create opportunities for you in the space, is what I've seen.
So almost touching a lot of different things, right? Figuring out where your passion lies. That's
right.
good.
She hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality of it is that as a young engineer, architect, surveyor, or whatever you are coming out, HR person, the one thing that you lack out of school likely is exposure.
Yep.
Right? In your mind, you have an idea of the thing that you would enjoy doing, right? But you haven't done it yet to see whether or not you actually enjoy it. So I can't tell you the number of young engineers who, come in and they do the work the first few years, and they're, heavy into actual design and lines on paper, right? And realize, I miss people.
Yeah.
I miss the interaction of going out and doing stuff. I've got my head down, I'm task oriented, I'm knocking it out, right?
Where everybody at?
But I feel like I'm sitting in a chair 6 hours a day. I go to lunch for 30 or 40 minutes. I come back and sit right back down in this chair for the last few hours. And I'm not interacting as much as I want, right? I don't want to do this for 20, 30, 40 years. I think it's super important that you hit the nail on the head. Being open as a young person in the AEC space, saying no very rarely early on when opportunity presents itself. You've got to learn the power of yes, because yes often equals exposure. Now, I'll put a caveat in this. I think that there are stages to careers. Some people can just take off like a jet from the very beginning and have this, linear or even exponential growth. That is the exception, not the rule. I think the reality of it is that you kind of sit on a plateau for a minute, just a few years, then you jump. And then it's another plateau, and then you jump again. I think those inflection points are also decision points. I think you have to determine whether or not you want to be what I would call a hardcore engineer who is designing, or do you want to manage people, right? And if you do want to manage people, then that career looks a little bit different. And then there'll become another inflection point. Maybe I want to manage people, but more in the technical space. But there's an opportunity to manage people in the more business-oriented space of AEC, of the AEC industry as well. Which one do I want to go in? And it's not a salary conversation, because, quite frankly, the bands will look very similar in whatever direction you take. But I think that in the maturation process, there are points where you realize what really is important to you as a person.
That's good.
And you have to look at each one of those inflection points as an opportunity to hone in on the thing that you find joy in. I'll sort of end with this, but I think that there's a big difference between being good at something and loving it.
That's good.
I think that engineers are often very good at things that bring them absolutely no joy, right? When you can, especially as a young person who hopefully isn't as encumbered with family and children and other things, I think it is imperative that you seek the thing that brings you joy.
Love that.
And when you do that, it makes it much easier for you to get out of bed in the morning and come to work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not a drag. You get more, that curiosity is piqued more because it's something that it's in you.
Yeah.
So being open, seeking exposure early to understand the things that do bring you joy.
Love that.
And then building a plan that will change.
Oh, yes.
Multiple times.
It will change, but building a plan. I know I'm talking too much, but when I mentor, the first thing we start out with is the North Star. All right? What is the thing that you see, that you want to be when it's all said and done, 15, 20, 30 years down the road? What do you want somebody to call you? All right? And then you build action plans, a short-term plan and a long-term plan to kind of get to that point. And I explain it this way. It's like going hiking. And when you first pull up to the trail, you can see the top of the mountain and you know where you're going, right? But once you get on that trail, all you can see are the trees in front of you. So you've got to have these action plans that allow you to navigate this trail, knowing where the end is, right? But having no idea what twists and turns are right in front of you.
Yeah.
So that part of it, I think, is extremely important for young engineers, architects, surveyors, whoever it may be, to really kind of zoom in on. Find the thing that gives you joy, seek that exposure, and plan.
That's excellent.
Yeah, I think Charlene and Darius, you gave amazing charges to the next generation of what will help them grow, and also never say you're talking too much. What you're saying is
Yeah, I was about to start doing some
amazing.
poetry
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. But I'll kind of switch gears and give more of a reassurance in a certain way to people entering the workforce in this era, in this generation. And it's thanks to those that came before us, that me as a woman in the industry,
Yeah.
I've never really truly experienced discrimination, and that's thanks to the people that came before us.
Love it.
I think, Chris, maybe you agree, as a person of color,
Mhm.
there's really, hopefully, no notable discrimination that we experience because those barriers were broken down.
Yeah.
And we live in a time where we don't have to worry about that, at least in my personal experience.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for those that did that hard work, and I know some people do still experience. It's not a perfect world, will never be.
Sure.
But to those coming into the industry, if you're a person of color, if you're a woman, if you're a minority, if you just don't feel like you're smart enough, that's always what I hear the young engineers say. I don't know if I'm smart enough to do this.
Yeah. I don't like math.
Yeah. I always say it's not rocket science, but it's comforting to me to know that there's no barrier other than my own ambition or lack thereof, my own work ethic or lack thereof.
Yeah, I think I'll hook into that a little bit. Like you said, I think there's a ways to go, but without we standing on the shoulders of giants, and without people like Darius and Charlene that are a generation above us, Yeah, I'm saying that in love, y'all know.
About half a generation.
Half a generation before us, right? I'm sure y'all experience things that we don't have to quite experience, right?
Exactly.
What I appreciate about this podcast is, I'm 8 years out of school. Abby's around that same age, range, but y'all have been in the industry for 20 plus years, and y'all are where we want to be, and y'all look like us. That means a lot. Representation matters.
It does.
You said something about innovation. The genesis of innovation is diversity of thought. If we all think the same, we can't innovate. And so I think you brought up a great point, Abby, and I love what you all talked about being open. I remember I came to H&TB with about 5 years of experience, and my manager, which he was an amazing manager, he said, when you first start, it's going to be like, I'm going to send you to the buffet, and then I'll see what you go back for seconds for, right? So that's exactly what you said, Charlene. I went to the buffet and put everything on my plate. I put chicken, I put greens, I put, different diversities of food. But when I went back for seconds, I only got maybe 2 or 3 things. Those are the things that I leaned into. And so, but you don't know what you lean into until you try a lot of different things. And so I think this has been really, really good. Maybe a follow-on question to kind of... Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
Before you
absolutely.
get there,
Jump in.
You said something that I think deserves more attention.
Yeah, let's talk about
You mentioned imposter syndrome. And I think that is something that young engineers struggle with a ton.
100%.
I used to feel like I needed to be on top of everything in a discussion to be effective. So I'm just about a hair OCD. So I call it homework. I would do my homework knowing that I had certain things coming up to kind of over prepare and feel like I had to know every number. And I remember sitting in meetings where I felt like I always knew the answer, and because I was young, no one would listen to that answer. Let me say this openly, and my counterparts may disagree, but I don't think they will. First off, you should never have imposter syndrome as an engineer at any level. Half the time we're in these meetings, a lot of individuals won't admit how little they know about what's going on. And for the ones who do know, the reality of it is it's a learned process.
Right.
And we've all had to walk it out. If you're in the room, you're there on purpose. And it's because people value the thing that you're bringing to the room.
Yeah.
As a young engineer, keep that in the back of your mind. Now, it may be one of those situations where you're in the room to listen because there's something that you need to hear. But never doubt the fact that you belong in the room.
Yeah, I love that.
That's right.
I love that.
So I just wanted to touch
Yeah,
that because I
bring
heard
some-
it.
bring some attention
and
to
and
it.
I
I love
remember
it.
remember how I was.
Yeah.
And it was always nerve wracking because the other part of it is that many of the rooms that I was in, no one else looked like me.
Right.
And I see that a lot with my female counterparts. This is a male-dominated industry by the numbers, right? You know, you're there for a purpose,
Yeah.
and you have some good things to bring to that room.
Yeah.
So just always remember that.
Yeah,
As a
I heard
young
something about if you don't have a seat at the table, bring a folding chair.
And as you go up high enough, I'll say this because this is another inflection point. There are some tables you'll never be invited to.
That's right.
You're an engineer, build your own.
Right. Yeah. Like-
So what does that mean? That means surrounding yourself with like-minded people who are on the same time you're on, right?
Yeah.
And really looking at the landscape and navigating it through together,
Yeah, that's
right? Like you said, you want to go fast, go by yourself. You want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
You don't have to. At some point in this career, and you're seeing it now. You're at a firm that is, really starting to jump after starting a few years ago. You can build your own table. You can do very well. And you should always keep that in the back of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You may not always fit. You may not always be accepted, right? And that's okay. Don't get upset about it, right? Find the gaps.
Yeah. That's excellent.
And when we were talking about that, and a couple of times you and Abby touched on something, and it brought to memory a book that I'm reading right now, and it talks about embracing change in seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you touched on it initially when you were talking about making a plan for your career, but being flexible because it's going to change. I think that's important to know what season you're in. Have you, where are you? Are you in winter? Are you in spring? Are you in the summer? Or are you in the fall? Because there are different things you have to do in each season. So being cognizant of that and not being able to sit down, visit your plan often.
Yes.
Visit your plan often. See if you're in a different season or you've learned something that has caused a shift, a transition. And then if it did, then how is your plan going to change? And I thought that was really interesting. And I forget what it is that you said that triggered that thought in my mind, seasons. And it's purely because of the book that I'm reading. And I think it's so important to know, because in your plan, you may reach the pinnacle of where you desired to be when you started out. And there, you still have more life to live.
Yes.
So now what? What do you do? So now you have to go back to the table and you have to create another plan, because guess what? I made it.
Yeah.
So what's my next?
Right.
So I think that is really important, again, that flexibility with your plan and knowing that it is going to change and just being ready to embrace the change, because the thing that is constant is change.
Yeah. So I want to throw a question out there. I did say I was gonna go off script, so y'all don't know what I'm about to ask.
Not at all.
However, I think this question is probably a unique one, but it's important and it ties in what we're talking about. We mentioned imposter syndrome, learning how to avoid that. So here's a question: bringing your full self to work, right? I try to be whoever I am wherever I'm at, because you don't have to pretend. Like when I'm at church, when I'm at the store, when I'm at home, obviously you understand the environment that you're in. You have to adapt to some degree. But what does bringing your full self to work look like? I like to laugh, so I be laughing at work. I do my job. So if my manager listening, I do my job. He knows that. But what is bringing your full self to work? What does that look like?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
So I'll start out.
Yeah.
And, that is something that I have struggled with openly
Sure.
for my whole career. So I am a 6'4", 300-pound, bald-headed, type A black man. There are some
Really a
places.
teddy bear, though. I gotta say that.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
There are some places where that plays very well.
Sure,
There are other
sure.
places where it doesn't.
Sure.
So, controversially, I think that there are opportunities, well, not opportunities, there are situations where code switching is a real thing. I spent a lot of time early in my career helping people be comfortable with me. That is not a comfortable situation to be in, right? So you would lead with, college and degrees, and, I went back and got my MBA at Georgia Tech and had some success there. I would lead with that kind of stuff. Maybe, come to work on an off day, with my college gear on, or, some level of validation to show people that, hey, I'm smart.
Right.
Speaking softly, sort of walking softly. All those things that I could do to disarm people. When I had questions, leading with things like, hey, I've got a stupid question to ask you, to kind of disarm you. And then I know my question isn't stupid, and I know it's going to hit pretty hard, but I gotta soften it so that you won't feel intimidated by what I'm about to ask. Yeah. These are all things that I would do early in my career, sometimes even later in my career, to make a room more receptive to the things that I felt like I had to say. I hope and pray that as our industry matures, that is no longer necessary. Authenticity is the way that you get the best out of people. Any barriers to authenticity that we have as managers, and I'm speaking sort of from the top down now, are things that we need to address in our corporate cultures. People come from all races, all creeds, all colors, all belief systems. And in a good office, our offices look like the communities we serve. So with that being said, we have to make sure that we put people in a position that they feel heard, that they feel like they can be authentic. I can't say that in this industry we've always done a good job at that as a lived experience. Yeah. So do I think things are improving? Absolutely. Do I think we still have a ways to go? Absolutely. I don't think that there's a separation between authenticity and professionalism. I think you can be both. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with that being said, there are some things that we have to get rid of in terms of stereotypes and other things that people, can see from 50 feet away but can't see, until you're really opening your mouth about your genuineness and understanding where you're coming from. I hope that makes sense.
It does. It does.
But I honestly, I think that is a thing that has been very difficult for myself, and maybe even some other young engineers coming into the game. There's, I said before, the difference even in age, right? He's a 25-year-old kid. What is he going to come in here and tell me? Right? How do you combat that? Right? How do you be your authentic self in a room where you don't even feel like you're going to actually be recognized as valuable? Absolutely. Right? Yeah. Those are things that young engineers have to work through. And what I would say to those individuals is self-awareness is super important, but so is courage. Right? You need to have the wherewithal to say what needs to be said, especially when you know that you need to say it. And there are ways to package it, right? Honey tastes better than vinegar. Right? But say what needs to be said regardless. Yeah. And if you do that, if you always err to your high sense of right, good things will happen.
Yeah, I love it. So. Abby, I want to come to you next, and then Charlene, obviously you can add. But what's your take on that question? Bringing your full self to work.
Everything you said was brilliant. I'll just say that. I'll say that. I think taking a different approach to the question, and maybe this isn't the right way to say it, but I think you kind of have to, in every scenario in your life, whether this is the way it should be or not, you have to earn respect.
Yes.
And I think Chris and I have somewhat of a similar personality. I'm professional when I need to be, but I'm a very casual, easygoing, probably goofy person.
Yeah.
And I like that about myself.
Mm-hmm.
But that can come off as unprofessional, and it can come off as someone who doesn't care about the work they're doing. And I know that. And so I have to make sure when I have an assignment, I deliver.
Yeah.
And I do it well.
Yeah.
And that earns me the credit to show, like, oh, I can be silly and goofy and myself.
Yeah.
And I still do a good job.
Yeah.
They're not mutually exclusive, but you kind of have to, again, whether that's the right thing or not, you
Yeah.
kind of have to earn that.
Yeah.
You have to show, if you're shy, if you're a quieter person, maybe you get overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
You have to show, I did a really good job on this. And maybe it does take that extra courage to step up and say, I'd like recognition for my hard work on this.
Yeah.
Or talking to your manager, I want exposure on this.
Yeah.
That's not going to come without courage. And if you're not the typically courageous type of person, it takes a little bit of extra effort. So I think your goal should be to be your authentic self in the
Yeah.
workplace. And as you said, there shouldn't be barriers to that, but there are. Whether that's the way you look or the way your personality naturally leans, you have to kind of take extra steps to get to the place where you can be
Mm-hmm.
authentically yourself and respected for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'll hook
I
into
love
that, and then Charlene would love to hear from you. I totally agree. So, as much as I do like to have fun and be my authentic self, I do know when it's appropriate to be more somber. And so I think there's self-awareness, but situational awareness too.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, okay, read the room. We could joke after, right? Like, let's make sure whatever needs to happen happens. So I think that's important. What you said. It's kind of just, knowing time and place, right? It's a time and place for everything.
Yes.
Without sacrificing who I am, but just knowing it's not the time. You know what I mean? So,
Yes.
Charlene, you
And I wanted to add, there were 2 points, and I was like, I'm going to hold on to these 2
Yeah.
points 'cause these
Let
are
her
really,
rip.
really
Yeah.
good. They're really, really good. So I think the first thing is taking responsibility for the energy that you bring into any space is a part of being authentic.
Yes, ma'am.
When you own that and you own that responsibility, you can be situationally aware. And another point that piggybacks on that is know those that labor among you, right? So when you are entering a space and when you're in that space, knowing the individuals that are in the room, and then what is it that you can authentically bring to that room that no one else said anything that you're authentically bringing that you can add to that space is really, really, really so important. So when you know who's in the room with you, then you can automatically say, hey, in this room, authentically, I can.
Yes.
And that's how you bring your authentic self. I love to laugh. I am a laugher. I have a contagious laugh. It's loud.
Yeah.
But there are times when I have to say, hey, control the laughter,
Right.
right? Situational awareness.
Sure.
But I think when you size up the room, you're intentional about knowing what's happening in the room, then you can authentically present yourself
Yeah,
in that.
absolutely.
So I think
Yeah.
that is key
I
too.
love that.
Yeah, that's really good.
Really.
You said something too that sort of shook something in me a little bit. And Lord, don't let me forget my point. It just left me. Wow.
I know
Live on a
one thing
podcast.
that hit me that she said is earning respect. I don't know if that's what it was.
No, it
but-
wasn't that at all.
No. Last time I tried to help you.
It'll come back to me.
Yeah.
It'll come back to me. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
Sorry
so
about that.
I was just notified by my audio engineer that we are at about an hour. So I wish we had about 2 more hours to get into some more things, but I think we could round it off with one final question that I'll put to the group. And depending on what y'all's responses is, I might answer the question too, but it might get taken depending on what y'all say. But when you consider the audience and kind of the demographic that we're talking to, early career, and for everybody too, but early career, making that transition from the quad, the campus, the yard, whatever you call your school, to a corporate office, right? A small business, a woman-owned business, a field engineer position, an HR professional that's working in the transportation space. I personally think anybody that works in AEC is an engineer. You just engineer with people, right? So, even people that work in communications and marketing, they work adjacent to us. With all that in mind, what's one piece of advice you'd like to leave to our listeners and viewers to help them effectively make the campus to career transition?
Mentor.
That was a question I was going to ask too. That's good. That's perfect.
And oftentimes, and we are intentional about mentorship, right?
Yeah.
We create opportunities for mentorship and mentorship programs, buddy programs. However, over the course of my career, the mentors that have made the greatest impact for me are the people that I watched. I saw how they entered a space. How did that marry with where I was going, what I was trying to do, and how did it resonate with who I am? Being aware of self, right? And then making an opportunity to acquire that mentor. Not officially, and the mentors that I acquired because I said, I need that from you. Those are the mentors I'm in touch with today.
Yeah.
And those are mentors I may not talk to today, tomorrow, this year, but if I picked up the phone right now and called and said, hey, I have a question, they would stop everything that they're doing to interact and engage with me because they're organically grown and something in them resonated with something in me.
Yeah,
and
good.
that aligned us. And they have all helped me at different stages from different companies through different industries, but we've stayed connected. So I think it is really, really important as you transition, find the person that resonates with you, that you can glean from and learn from, build that relationship. And I've actually even said to people, hey, I need you to mentor me because I need this thing that I see in you. And not being afraid to own that because you would be surprised what you can learn, the conversations you can have, and it's invaluable throughout your career.
Darius, you want to jump in?
Yeah, and this kind of ties in. I remember what I was about to say.
There it is. Look at that.
I'm going to build on your mentorship and add advocacy. There's a difference between a mentor and an advocate, right? As young engineers, oftentimes we are task-oriented. We put our heads down. We do a good job, but we expect our employers to see the good job we've done and help us progress our careers as we go along. This is ACEC, right? So we can talk like this. We are servants to clients, right? Oftentimes you get on projects, you do something very, very well, your area becomes quiet. You don't cause problems. Your quality is high. I don't want to move a person who's doing a great thing, right, away from it because then that means I've got to find someone else who can sit in that chair and get that learning curve, right? And some managers will say, as long as it's quiet, I'm going to leave it alone. And that person doesn't progress as fast as they probably could have because they haven't been courageous enough to say, hey, I want to do something different, right? Have courage, but find an advocate. It may be the same person as your mentor. It may not be, but it is somebody who recognizes your worth and has access to rooms that you may not have access to, has access to conversations that you may not have had yet, right? Those are the people who will help you progress the quickest. They are also the people who will tell you, like a mentor, where you need to improve to make the next step.
Yeah.
The advocate may not spend as much time with you individually as a mentor will, but they will speak your names in rooms that you've never been in. So it is important that you are able to identify both the mentor and the advocate, that you engage them all early and often, and that when they advocate for you, you make them look good. Because if they advocate for you and you don't put the work in, that doesn't mean that you don't fail, because everybody's gonna fail, right? But they have to see that you care about it as much as they do,
That's right.
right? And if you do that, even in failure, fail fast, fail often, just don't fail at the same stuff, right? and those people will continue to advocate for you over and over and over. So
Excellent.
Amen.
I love that.
Yeah.
We got an amen for that.
Yes.
Agree completely with mentorship and advocacy. In my career, definitely Emily, our founder, has been my biggest mentor, and that's because she is completely honest with me, and I think that's something
That's
you
good.
should seek. It shouldn't be just, oh, I have a mentor and they give me advice and they tell me how great I am. You need someone who can tell you, this wasn't good, and this is how you can make it better. You messed up here, this is how you can fix it. This is good job. You need all of it.
Right.
But I'll, again, switch gears just quickly. I know we're
Sure.
almost out of time.
Yeah.
But this industry and this time in the industry, we need engineers and we need engineer adjacent professionals more than ever.
Yeah.
There are plenty of jobs.
Yes, there are.
People entering the workforce now, the important thing isn't to find the job. You'll find a job. The important thing is to know yourself and know what you want out of a job as much as you can. You're young. You don't maybe know exactly what you want. Have some idea. Be thoughtful when you're sending out your applications. Because, again, it's not finding a job that's the problem. It's finding a job that you will succeed in, that you will be happy in.
That's good.
I've seen a lot of like recent graduates, people looking for internships that have just blown me away with, I know exactly what I want and I know that this place is where I'll get it, or we interview them and they're like, thank you, but this is not what I'm looking for. I respect that so much. I didn't have that when I was, entering the workforce. I was like, application.
Yeah. Please hire me.
And I came before the COVID issue, so
Yeah.
I know even more so then it was difficult to find a job. That's not the case anymore.
Right.
Really be intentional when you're putting out your applications, you're in these interviews. Try to know what you want and look for those options and find a place where you can succeed and be happy.
That is fantastic.
That's very good.
Well, thankfully, y'all didn't take my answer. So I'll drop my one piece of advice, and it's learn your superpower.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Learn your superpower. There's something that everybody can do that nobody else can do. The way you do it, the way you bring it. Learn that early and lean into it. There's something in everybody that makes them special and unique. Everybody's coded differently. We might be similar, but everybody's unique. And so learn that early and figure out a place that aligns with that superpower, where that superpower can be used. It'd be terrible if you can fly, but people kept asking you to crawl. That'd be a terrible place to be in, right? So that would be my piece of advice. And just, plug HNTB. I feel like I worked at a lot of firms and they all did great things, but it wasn't until coming here where I was able to leverage my superpowers. And I'm thankful for that. So with that, I'm going to break the fourth wall and talk to the viewers out there. But a huge thank you, first of all, to our panelists, Charlene, snaps and claps and all of that. Charlene Smart, Darius Broughton, Abigail Burks. And behind the camera, Brett with ACEC. We literally could not do this without him because
Literally could not do
he
it.
would not be streaming or you wouldn't hear us. So thank you,
Brett.
Brett. We appreciate you.
And thank you, Kate, for the question.
Yes,
Yes.
Appreciate you.
and I do want to shout out Kate too. She's also a junior board member, and she was integral in the background of setting this podcast up. So, I want to make sure I'm giving her flowers as well. But this conversation impacted me personally. I was taking notes not just to field questions, but to also take this back and learn from everything that you all mentioned. So, thank you again to ACEC Georgia for allowing the junior board to take over the podcast again. To everyone listening or watching, we hope today's conversation gave you something, at least one thing, if not many, to take with you, put it in your bag as you continue to build your career from campus to career in the ACEC industry, AEC industry. So thanks for tuning in. Couple of things too, we love to hear from you. So all of us are LinkedIn active, so please connect with us. I believe in the show notes they'll drop the links to our profiles. So whether you're in school trying to find out what you want to do or you're in your career, we'd love to connect with you. So with that, we'll close it out here. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
Thank you.
Good day, everybody.